Prior to filing this motion to disqualify, you and I were friends, correct?
Yes.
Prior to, we were friends. We're not friends anymore, as I'm going to crawl up your with all these questions.
But I always have cash at the house.
Now, I would not volunteer that information because that's a really good way to get robbed.
I think you lied right here. No. This is the truth, Judge. And it is a lie. It is a lie.
Now, that's like you can tell she's rattled. Never let him see you sweat, no matter how rattled you are. And it is incredibly important in this case because if she gets disqualified, likely her whole office is disqualified. And that throws this whole prosecution into a tailspin.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And it's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, your board-certified criminal defense lawyer, coming to you with my Irish design directly from Weirs & Sons in Dublin, Ireland. Today we're reacting to Trump and Fani Willis and the disqualification proceedings that are ongoing. But before we get to that, this is brought to you by eForms.com. eForms.com is a very effective way to avoid expensive people like me. For example, if you are blessed with a very active grandma in your basement, like I am, and you have to control her every movement because, she's out there with her OnlyFans and all the other things that she's doing online. You have to take care of her wealth because she's just got so much money because of her OnlyFans thing going on. So I had to take power of attorney. And so I went on to eForms.com. I got an eForms.com document that is solid, and I have power of attorney, and now I'm managing her vast wealth. And so when she gets on her four-wheeler or when she gets on her crotch, she's got so many toys, you wouldn't believe it. Anything that you need legal protection for, especially when you're dealing with a third party, eForms.com, a very effective way to avoid an expensive lawyer and take care of your grandma in your basement. So Trump's folks and a half a dozen of the other co-defendants have filed motions to disqualify Fani Willis. Now, what does this mean? How are they trying to disqualify her? Well, she made the mistake of having a romantic relationship with one of her special prosecutors, a guy by the name of Nathan Wade. I guess he's a very well-known lawyer, and while he doesn't necessarily do this kind of thing, he's an accomplished lawyer, and from what I've seen, it doesn't seem like he's that out of it. She has unwittingly or wittingly given the defense an argument. So if they are successful in removing her as the prosecutor, her whole office then gets tainted with that brush. If her whole office gets tainted with that brush, it has to go through a special panel. When we get to that special panel, this is just delay, which is Trump's deal, right? When you have a situation like this, it's very dicey. And guess what? It's also salacious. Fani Willis is now on the stand, and she's having to testify about a romantic relationship she had with someone. Who wants to answer those questions, honestly? Nobody would want to answer those questions because they're just embarrassing. They're intrusive, they're embarrassing, but she's doing it. And they interviewed her father, and they interviewed Nathan Wade, and so they've had all these people on the stand, and even the former governor of Georgia. And the whole point is there a conflict of interest? And the conflict of interest here lies in, does she somehow personally benefit from making this a longer case and having Mr. Wade bill, and she somehow gets that money? And there has been testimony about trips they went on and reimbursement. And so I will have to say she is a tough cookie, but she sort of fucked up here, honestly. She gave the defense something that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And she even said in campaigning that she would never have her. I don't even know why she put this out there. Maybe it had to do with some former prosecutor who got called on the carpet for sexual harassment. But she said she would never have a romantic relationship with somebody that she employed, which is, I think, a good standard. I've never done that. they say you never should put your pen in the company ink, and you never do that, ever, and I've never done that. But Nathan Wade isn't necessarily your average employee. He's a contract employee. But let's kind of look at see what she had to say on the stand, because she's a firecracker.
Isn't it true that you met Mr. Wade October 2019 at a judges conference?
We haven't gotten to the point where Ms. Willis should be treated hostile in this situation.
I think we have.
I'm very much want to be here, so I'm not a hostile witness. I very much want to be here.
Not so much that you're hostile, Ms. Willis. It'd be an adverse witness. Your interests are opposed to Ms.
So what they're talking about here is the state didn't call her as a witness. The defense did. And when you call a witness, you're on direct examination. And when you're on direct examination, you're limited to asking open-ended questions and not leading questions. And so the rule is that you call the witness, you can't lead the witness unless the witness is an adverse, has an adverse interest. And here she's clearly adverse. So that's what they're talking about here. And so and just so we're clear, open-ended questions are like, what did you do next? So there's a longer answer. And a closed-ended question or a leading question would be, and you went to the bank that day, right? So that's the difference between the two.
She testified.
Please give me the time period. That we're
Mr.
talking
Wade
about.
visited you at the place you laid your head.
When?
Has he ever visited you at the place you laid your head?
So let's be clear, because you lied in this. Let me tell you which one you lied in. Right here. I think you lied right here. No. This is the truth,
Judge.
And it is a lie. It is a lie.
Ms. Willis?
You see.
Mr. Sano, thank you. We're going to take 5 minutes.
Now, that's like you can tell she's rattled, and you never let them see you fucking sweat, no matter how rattled you are. And when you answer questions, you answer them directly, succinctly. You don't give them anything. You know what I mean? So the issue here is, did Fani Willis benefit somehow from paying Mr. Wade hourly to the extent that that the prosecution of Donald Trump is somehow benefiting her financially? And that would be the conflict here. And because, she gets a salary, whatever, and he gets an hourly for the work that he does on the case. And I don't know what his hourly, I've heard some rumors, or I don't know how accurate they are, that he's billed for like 24 hours in a day. Well, you can't do that. You absolutely can't do that. But the way I look at it is, in all honesty, who the fuck cares? In a sense, because her financial mismanagement, whatever you want to call it, with her office is just that, with her office. And that's for the voters and the legislature to decide. Really doesn't impact this case much.
I would ask, I need 3 documents in front of me, and they're the 3 filings of Ms. Merchant. 3 filings? Does anyone?
Now, if you look at some of the comments, on Law and Crime, and that's what we're reviewing is Law and Crime's coverage of this. There's a lot of invective here, but the legal wranglings that are going on here, I think, are going to be for naught. I think the judge is not going to side with the defense in this case, and it's going to proceed. And they're going to try to appeal this to an appellate court, but it's not reviewable at this stage.
Have the 3 filings of Ms. Merchant. Does the court have the 3 filings of Ms. Merchant?
When you say the filings, you mean like the pleadings?
The pleadings, yes, Your Honor.
Okay. I think we could locate those for you in the supplemental.
I want the one filed on January the 8th, the one filed immediately after we filed ours, and the final one.
If you want to take a break to get them, I can make a copy. I think we have one.
The only copy I have is going to have my notes on it. So if we don't have a clean copy,
Have a 5-minute break, Your Honor.
let's
I'll
take
get the
5.
documents.
All right.
I'll sit here and wait for him.
And think about this. So it makes sense that she would ask for those, because they're going to be referring to the whole subject matter as to why she's even there to begin with.
Let's start back in 2019.
Yep.
So you and Mr. Wade met in October 2019 at a conference?
That is correct. And I think in one of your motions you tried to implicate I slept with him at that conference, which I find to be extremely offensive. I stayed at that conference. Mr. Wade was my teacher. I did not meet him when he taught the class. I was standing outside talking to Lisa Reeves, who is a judge. Me and her were just having a conversation. Mr. Wade walks up. I think they hug each other. They have some brief conversation. She introduces us.
So one of the things that's going on here is that Mr. Wade was in a divorce. I think the defense and his wife's divorce team have gotten together and are they were looking at interrogatories, and they're doing a lot of commingling of facts and figures.
At a place where you were living between 2019 and 2021.
So you want to start with the lie that he lived with me in South Fulton in 2019, a home he's never been to? That's one lie you told in your document. No.
Judge, I didn't ask her about that.
So one of the things as a witness, you can't just volunteer facts. But she wants to set the record straight because there's a lot of things that she believes are not lies. Are lies.
Ms. Merchant, I want you to ask a very precise question. I think she's saying and answering that he did not live with her. So why don't we break that up into smaller parts?
And so one of the things that the judge is, the judge obviously knows Miss Willis. And the judge knows the tension that's in that fucking courtroom. You can't feel it as much just watching it. But when you're in that courtroom, especially if you're one of the players, that is tense as tense can be.
I didn't ask about living.
But you put in your, while we're talking about professionalism, she put in 3 different documents he lived with me.
Full opportunity to respond.
And she's pissed. Testified just, post-conviction where I was the lawyer for a particular hearing and they just wanted to know about something. But even when it's just that limited, it's disconcerting to sit there on the stand. And when they're prying into every little part of your personal life, it's got to be disconcerting.
And filed that with the court.
In 2019.
He's never been to South Fulton. In 2019, I lived in South Fulton. He has never been to my residence in 2019. Ever. Not once.
In 2019, he's never been to your residence. Any place.
I lived in my home in South Fulton before I started getting the threats that were here, a house I paid for with my own sweat and tears. I'm no longer able to live there. But in 2019, I did. And in the 2 months of 2019 that I knew Mr. Wade, 3 months, the beginning of October, all of November, and all of December, Mr. Wade never came to my house in South Fulton. Let me help you out. I lived there in 2020. He never came to my house in 2020, let alone live with me, as you put falsely in these documents.
And here's the thing. I think that they only dated for, a relatively short period of time, like a year or so.
In the first 3 months of 2021, when I could still enjoy my home, Mr. Wade never came to South Fulton, and it is certainly a lie that he lived with me.
Then it came time to question Willis about the vacations the two took together and who paid for the trips.
Talk about, you said that sometimes you paid Miss Yurdi cash. When you went on vacation with Mr. Wade, let's just go one by one. Let's start with the first one. What's the first time you went on vacation with Mr. Wade?
I think the first time we went on vacation was around April of 22, and a vacation is a stretch, but I'm trying to be comprehensive. I recall April of 22. His birthday is March the 18th, so that would have been his 49th birthday. I took him to Tennessee for the day. I think we went to a museum. I think we might have stayed the night. I'm not sure, but Tennessee's kind of hard to call a vacation, but I just am trying to be inclusive. And like I said, I know it wasn't more than a day.
So you didn't spend the night?
I think that we did. That's what I'm telling you. I think that there's a possibility that we stayed that night in April of 22.
Who paid for the hotel?
I think I did. It was his birthday.
When did you start dating?
When I started dating Mr. Wade.
See, these questions, they're very intrusive. Oh, so now we know he slept in a hotel and she paid for his hotel.
Mr. Wade? Mm-hmm. It was right around then.
April 2020?
22, yes.
2022.
It was around then. I don't know, you know, it's not like when you're in grade school and you send a little letter and it says, will you be my girlfriend, and you check it. I don't know the day that we started seeing each other, but it was early 22 is my recollection.
Okay, early 22. And you all went to Florida on vacation as well?
I don't recall going to Florida on vacation with him.
You never went to Florida with Mr. Wade?
When we went to get on the cruise ship, we went to Miami.
Okay, that's the only time that you went to Florida with him?
I think we went to Miami and spent the night. That's my recollection.
Okay.
I think we spent one night so that we wouldn't miss the ship. That's my recollection of our
Who paid for that hotel?
In Miami? I don't remember that.
And how'd you get to Miami?
We would have flown. And we've done that, so that I'm clear, we've done that twice. I think one time we stayed, and I honestly can't tell you, did we stay when the ship left or did we stay when the ship came back? I also can't tell you, so there's 2 cruises out of my...
And think about how hard it is to remember back, you know, of your daily life. You know, we went out to dinner 6 months ago. Where did we go? What did we eat? Who paid for this? Who paid for that? How did you get there? And what time of day was it? Was there anybody else there? You think about these things that, you know, you go through life. You don't take notes on your life. So it's you know, it's tough to be in that hot seat.
Miami. There's one that's in that October time period that was with his mom. And then there was another that was a New Year's Eve trip. I know I paid for the New Year's Eve trip because the tickets were $697 each. And I thought, this is ridiculous that the tickets are $700 to go to Miami. But when you travel during New Year's Eve, you know, they get you.
So let's just back up and talk about the first time that you went to Florida with Mr. Wade. That was the time that you said you stayed in Miami at the hotel the first night?
That's the time I told you I am not sure. So I'm not sure of 2 things. So I want to make sure that my testimony is clear. I'm not sure if we stayed in Miami on the October trip. I'm not sure if we stayed in Miami on the December trip. I just can't remember that. And I also don't remember, so that the record is clear, I don't remember if the necessity was as we got on the ship or we got off the ship. But I do remember there was a night spent in Miami because either whatever. I don't remember. But I think that there was a night spent in Miami.
That cruise is the one that you took in October, right?
Ma'am, if you have something to...
So the issue is, you went on a cruise with Mr. Wade, right? Yes. And Mr. Wade paid for those expenses, correct? Yes. And at the time, Mr. Wade was billing for work he was doing for your office in relation to Donald Trump and the RICO case, correct? Yes. And as a result, you benefited financially from... That's kind of what they're going. But they don't fucking have it. And here's what's going to wind up happening. The judge is going to... I mean, this has really kind of become a real shit show, and I think the judge has let it go on longer than he probably should. But, I mean, as she goes on, she says the expenses sort of evened out. So I'd pay for dinner, he'd pay for the room. I'd pay for the room, he'd pay for the transportation there. It was his birthday, I paid for everything. And normally it doesn't work like that. I mean, at least doesn't, not in my world. If I have a woman in my life, I pay for everything, and that's typically what guys do. Guys that aren't cheap. But she, and I guess it was a bone of contention with them that he wouldn't let her pay, or that she wouldn't let him pay for everything.
Refresh my recollection. I'm intentionally trying to not be difficult with you, but I don't want to make up something.
Right.
I know that on one of those 2 trips, we stayed in Miami. I am not sure right now. You're asking me about...
Oh, I'm sorry, you misunderstood. I was not asking you which night you stayed in Miami. I'm asking if you took a cruise in October 2022 with Mr. Wade.
Yes, and his mom.
And his mother. That's what I was asking.
Yes.
Is that the first time you met his mother?
Yes.
It was on that cruise. And that was Royal Caribbean, I believe?
You too.
Now, say what you want to about Royal Caribbean or any of these cruises. Not a huge fan.
Honestly don't remember what ship. I know we've taken 2 cruises. I don't know what the ships were.
But he paid for the flight and the cruise on Royal Caribbean that time.
So yes, he paid. He is the original one that does it. He has something called... Mr. Wade is a world traveler. I'm not as versed as him. He's been to 6 of the 7 continents. And so he has both a personal travel agent and he also has a cruise travel agent. I don't know anything about either of those kind of travel agents. So he is the one that would book the travel. But we need to be clear when we're talking about just because he booked it doesn't mean, like, I don't consider him having taken me anyplace. Let me just be honest. The only point that's ever taken somebody someplace is for his 50th birthday. I consider that I took him to Belize. And I took him to Belize because, I don't want to discuss his personal business, but I'm happy Mr. Wade is still here with us. And I did 50 big, very big.
And then after that cruise, you all flew to Aruba and spent a couple days in a hotel there, correct?
Right, and his mother was not happy
He
that we left her
initially
behind.
paid for that. He initially paid for that.
For Aruba, yes, ma'am.
So let's talk about both of those. I know he initially paid for it. Did you pay him back?
For the cruise and for Aruba, yeah, I gave him his money before we ever went on that trip.
You gave him cash before you ever went on the trip? Mm-hmm. Okay. And so when you got cash to pay him back on these trips, would you go to the ATM?
No, lady,
You would not go to the ATM.
no.
Okay. So Fulton County pays you direct deposit, I assume?
Yes, Fulton
Okay.
County and the state of Georgia both pay me direct deposits.
Okay. So the cash that you would pay him, you wouldn't get it out of the bank.
I have money in my house.
You have money in your house. So it was just money that was there.
When you meet my father, he's going to tell you as a woman, you should always have, which I don't have, so let's don't tell him that. You should have at least 6 months in cash at your house at all times. Now, I don't know why this old black man feels like that, but he does. When we were growing up, my daddy had 3 safes in the house. So my father's bought me a lockbox, and I always keep cash in the house. Now, I don't do it to the degree that my father would do it, so he would probably be ashamed with me, but I always have cash at the house. That has been...
Now, I would not volunteer that information because that's a really good way to get robbed. But be that as it may, if she's paying her way, where's the conflict? I mean, and even at the dollar value that we're talking about here, it's not significant. I mean, and so when I say where's the conflict, what I mean is, if she's paying her own way, is there really a conflict? But she is sleeping with one of her subordinates. That's a problem. I think that really is a problem for her, just from the perception of impropriety. You're in a very high-profile role as the DA, just generally speaking. A lot of people go from DA to being senator. But in addition to that, you are handling one of the highest-profile RICO cases in our nation's history. And you allow yourself to be vulnerable to this attack. It's an issue.
I don't know, all my life. If you're a woman and you go on a date with a man, you better have $200 in your pocket. So if that man acts up, you can go where you want to go. So I keep cash in my house, and I don't keep cash as good in my purse like I used to, because I don't go on many dates. But when you go on a date, you should have cash in your pocket.
You've never given Mr. Wade...
That's actually really sound advice for women. You need to have your own independent means. You need to have, not all guys are honorable. Not all guys are decent, and if all of a sudden you're left in a lurch, you need to be able to control your own destiny. And that's why housewives save the 50s, where they stayed at home. And there's nothing wrong with a stay-at-home mom by any means. But you're left vulnerable because you don't have your own source of income. If the guy turns out to be abusive, you're subservient to him and your situation. So that's kind of what she's talking about, is be strong and independent.
money through Cash App.
No,
The only money you've ever given him outside of a contract is cash.
I didn't give him money in a contract, so that was cute, but I didn't give him money outside in a contract. What happened is, no, we're going to answer it since you said it. He worked more hours than he was paid, and the county paid him for the work that he did. So don't be cute with me and then think that you're not going to get an answer.
And I will ask you about the contract in a minute. I asked you about cash. Did you ever pay him anything? And I'm trying to qualify my questions. I'm not talking about the contract with Fulton County that was paid. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about outside of that. Did you ever pay him anything other than cash?
I've only given him cash a few times in the course of what we're talking about.
So you've
if
never
we
used
would
a
go to
credit card?
dinner,
Let her finish her answer.
if we would go to dinner, I wouldn't give him cash because he paid for dinner or I paid for dinner. I've given him cash only a few times in life, probably 4.
Okay.
Probably the most money I've ever handed him is $2,500. The least amount of money I've handed him, probably between $500 and $1,000.
So your office objected to us getting Delta records for flights that you may have taken with Mr. Wade.
And, well, no, look. I object to you getting records. You've been intrusive into people's personal lives. You're confused. You think I'm on trial. These people are on trial for trying to steal an election in 2020. I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial.
So my question was, do you have any
I
problem?
object to getting any personal records of mine.
We're not dealing with privilege through a witness.
And I'm not, no, I'm not dealing with privilege.
So you can't get through, and what the judge is talking about is, there's a privilege that exists between attorney and client, and what your conversations are with your client or with your lawyer are 100% privileged. The decision to object or the decision to go after records or the strategy, that's all privileged information, and that's what the judge is talking about here.
Privilege, what we had offered to put them in camera for the court to review, and I just want to know if she has any
That's
problem.
not something you deal with a witness.
When did your personal relationship with Mr. Wade end?
Our personal relationship ended in this year.
Now here she's going to give these qualifying answers, which just, I hate it when people do this.
So let's be very clear so that we don't mix words. I don't want to mix words in here. Mr. Wade is my friend right now. Mr. Wade, I would say, has been my friend since 2020. I think he started out as like a mentor and a professional colleague. He became my friend and somebody that I really respected. I feel very indebted to Mr. Wade for taking on the task of this job. And he is certainly my friend and one of the people that I respect the most. So if you ask about a personal relationship, I consider myself to have a personal relationship right now, Mr. Wade. I consider myself to have a personal relationship with Anna Cross. I consider myself to have a personal relationship with Mr. Abadi. I consider myself to have a personal
The question should have been, when did you end your romantic relationship with Mr. Wade?
relationship with Andrew Evans.
Okay, let me just
And so
clarify that
I
before we
have a
go.
personal relationship with him as we speak right now.
A romantic
I don't think
relationship.
that's what you're asking. I think that's what
Romantic
you're asking.
relationship. When did your romantic relationship with Mr. Wade end?
My-
Did it end?
Me and Mr. Wade, we are good friends. My respect for him has grown over these 7 weeks of attack.
Answer the question.
We are very good friends. I think, but for these attacks, it would have been a friendship that, as life goes, you would have stopped having. I think that you have cemented that we'll be friends to the day we die.
Let's.
Could we just have an answer to the question?
I can handle Mr. Seda. Let's have
She
it.
asked about a personal relationship.
She asked when the romantic relationship ended. That's the question.
It's sometime in, I'd say late summer of 2023. So I don't believe me in, this is what you're really asking about. This is the salaciousness of all of this, right?
No, I'm just
When
asking
you're
about your
re-
romantic relationship, when you stopped dating. Asking.
I think that me and Mr. Wade, so he's a man, he probably would say June or July. I would say we had a tough conversation in August. And so that men in relationships at the end of physical intimacy, women in relationships when that tough conversation takes place.
I hate it when people answer questions like that. It wasn't a straightforward answer. You know, it's either June or July or August. Well, what was it? Was it June? Was it July? Or was it August? When did you have your last date? And really the question is, when's the last time you commingled funds? When's the last time he paid for anything of yours? When's the last time you went on a trip with him? When's the last time any money that he made, as a result of being employed by the county as a special prosecutor, when is the last time he paid for anything of yours? Now, at the same time, if they're splitting things, it is what it is. But she's given the defense here an opportunity to attack her. Now, one of the things that, it is really common, and we're not super common, but it is common for a defense to try to disqualify a particular prosecutor for whatever reason. And it is incredibly important in this case, because if she gets disqualified, likely her whole office is disqualified. And that throws this whole prosecution into a tailspin. But I don't think that's going to happen here. The issue is not whether or not she had a personal relationship with Mr. Wade. I mean, people are married all the time. I know 2 prosecutors that were married in the U.S. Attorney's Office. You know, I mean, that happens all the time. The issue becomes whether she gains financially, personally, from her relationship with Mr. Wade, because he's been appointed a special prosecutor, and the work that he's doing and getting paid for is she's somehow getting essentially a kickback. You know, and they're coordinating with Mr. Wade's ex, and they went over his expenditures with, in interrogatories with him. So I just, like everything else Trump's lawyers do, I just don't see it. Is there an appearance of impropriety? Kind of there is. And, you know, she kind of fucked up there because she's given the defense a lot of argument to throw mud at this and shed doubt on the integrity of this prosecution. To that end, she messed up, you know, and would it be different if they all of a sudden married? No, because it's still the same thing. Might even be worse. But they only dated for a short time, and it sounds like they didn't even commingle funds, and that they basically split things as they went. So let's just check out a little bit of Nathan Wade's testimony and see what that is.
My name is Nathan Wade, Nathanwade.
Good morning, Mr. Wade.
Good morning.
I think it's so funny that 3-piece suits are now back in. That was such a 70s thing.
Prior to filing this motion to disqualify, you and I were friends, correct?
Yes.
Prior to, we were friends. We're not friends anymore, as I'm going to crawl up your ass with all these questions.
And in fact, I supported you when you ran for judge in 2016.
You did.
I wore your shirts. My kids wore your shirts.
Ms. Merchant, your personal opinions have no relevance.
Okay.
I mean that in the best way.
That's completely fine. I will
Let's get
move
to the
on.
point.
Thank you. No.
I mean, I don't understand what she's trying to do there. I mean, I do know what she's trying to do, but it's completely inappropriate. So it was good that the judge stepped in.
No, totally fine. Thank you. You filed for divorce from your wife on November 2nd, 2021?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And
now remember, Fani Willis said they started dating April 2022.
in that divorce proceeding, did you file answers, things such as interrogatories?
Gee, where'd you get those? Oh, I think we got them from your ex-wife.
I did.
Okay. And so interrogatories are where you're responding to things that basically answers that the other side is asking?
Yes, ma'am.
And I've got your complaint for divorce. I'm just going to mark it for the record as Defendant's Exhibit 2. The first interrogatories that you answered, those were December 27th, 2021. Is that right?
Thereabout. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And in those, you were asked different things, but those are sworn. You actually swear to those. You verify them, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So you know what interrogatories are? Whenever you go through a civil proceeding, and divorces are civil, even though they're quite often uncivil, which is why I don't do any fucking divorce work, because they're just awful. But whenever you have civil discovery, and in civil discovery they have a thing called interrogatories. Interrogatories are written out questions that you have to answer to the other side unless you object to a particular question, and they're under oath. So you sign a statement saying these are given under oath. So if you lie, it's committing perjury. Whether you lie about what you said in the interrogatory or lie about it afterwards, like now he's under oath.
And so that verification is where you're swearing under oath that everything in it is true?
Yes, ma'am.
And let's see, you were asked if you had any documents which relate to the purchase of gifts by you to any person other than the defendant with whom you have or had a relationship, romantic relationship, from the date of your marriage, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you responded under oath that you didn't have any documents to that.
That's correct.
You again responded to an interrogatory. You updated those responses on May 30th, 2023?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you actually sent those directly to opposing counsel in the divorce?
Yes, ma'am.
But in that one, you answered none against that question, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So May 30th, 2023, you said that you didn't have any documents showing any purchase of anything with someone that you had a romantic relationship with?
I believe the interrogatory was gifts,
Okay.
not anything. Yes.
And I have it if you want to take a look.
So clearly they are coordinating with a scorned woman or ex-wife. You know, think about it. You start out a marriage, you know, with all the best hopes and dreams and everything, and then it turns to shit, and all of a sudden now you're in court answering, for probably a second or third time, questions, you know, related to conduct that has nothing to do with nothing.
Relationship with?
I believe the interrogatory was gifts,
Okay.
not anything. Yes.
And I have it if you want to take a look. I'm going to mark, okay, so just for the record, I've got your complaint for divorce marked as number 2. I've got the verification and the interrogatories from 2021. I'm going to mark those as 3. And then your May 30th, 2023, I'm going to mark as 4. Judge, may I approach you?
You may.
Thank you. That is what I marked as 4. This is what I marked as 3. Okay. Thank you, Judge. All right. If you take a look at what I marked as 2, 3, and 4. Just see if you recognize those.
I do.
And are those, that's your divorce complaint, and then your 2021 interrogatory and your 2023 interrogatory, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, are they a fair and accurate representation of what is filed in that case?
Yes, ma'am.
I move to admit those into evidence.
And this is 2, 3, and 4.
It's 2, 3, and 4, yes.
All right. Any objection from the state?
The divorce.
No objection to 3 and 4, and subject to Ms. Merchant's representation that 2 is a filing of divorce. I just don't, the divorce complaint, I don't have that in front of me, but subject to that representation, no objection.
All right.
So now these become public. You know, oh, gee, I answered all those. We're having our own divorce. You know, let's get this done. I don't want... Oh, fuck. Now they're part of the criminal case, so anybody can get them, I think. Unless they're under seal, but I doubt that they're under seal. But how awful to go through this, honestly. But it is part of the defense challenge, and we'll see what they do.
By show of hands, any objection from other defense counsel? Seeing none, defendants 2, 3, and 4. This should be Romans. Well, we'll just call them 2, 3, and 4. Admitted without objection.
So that interrogatory that you filed in 2023, that's one where you said no, that you didn't have any documents relating to the purchase of gifts, that you had a romantic relationship with someone, right?
Which interrogatory are we talking?
Number 4, 2023.
Which number in the interrogatory?
And the reason why that's important in a divorce setting is because, let's say A and B are married. Let's say B decides that B is going to go out with another person. Anything that B spends is dissipation of marital assets. So, you know, she or he on the other side, hey, I want my money back. You know, they get to claw back some of that money. So they take it out in the house or whatever. So that's why that's important in that proceeding, not necessarily in this proceeding.
Number 4.
So, which number interrogatory are you referring to?
It's defendant's exhibit number 4.
I have defendant's exhibit 4 here.
Uh-huh.
Which number interrogatory are we referring to?
Oh, which number out of the questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Hold on. There's no page number, but it is the second page.
All right.
They're asking if you have any receipts for restaurants, hotels, bars, things like that.
The first number 1?
I believe it's the second number 1.
The second number 1? Okay.
So it asks you if you have any receipts for things like restaurants, bars, hotels, things like that, where you accompanied a member of the other sex romantic partner. Correct?
It says identify any and all occasions.
Okay. And so it says to identify any and all occasions where you entertained a member of the other sex okay, who's not related to blood, and including dining, drinking, restaurants, bars, pubs, hotels, all of that. Okay. And what was your answer to that?
None.
None. Okay. So May.
Now, his answer to that is none. And if we're talking about during the marriage ended in 2021. And he supposedly didn't start seeing Fani Willis until April of 2022 or sometime in the early part of 2022. So let's see if his answer dovetails with hers.
30th, 2023. You prepared this document,
I did.
submitted it,
I did.
and it says none as far as entertaining a member of the opposite sex.
It does.
Okay. No hotels, no bars, no restaurants.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, are they talking about just during the marriage or at any time?
You again updated that. Let's see. You updated it on December 22nd, 2023. And I'm going to mark that as defendant's number 5, and I have copies. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then you updated it once again on January 26th, 2024, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That one. May I approach the witness again, Judge?
Is that what you're marking as Defense Exhibit 6?
Yes, Judge. I'm marking number 6 is the January 26th, 2024 interrogatory, and then that one. And then number 5 is the December 22nd, 2023 interrogatory response.
All right, are you tendering those at this time?
Yes, I am.
All right. Any objection from counsel to Defense Exhibit 5 and 6?
Yes, no objection.
Thank you, Ms. Cross. Seeing none others.
Luckily, I have those for you. So now that you have those, let's just talk about those for a minute. Those were verified, so sworn under oath. Mm-hmm. Okay. And one of them was December 22nd, and then of this last year, so last December, and then one was just recently submitted in January, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
One of the things I like about Mr. Wade is he's a pretty straightforward witness. He's not giving her any shit, and he's not answering with an invective or with unclear answers.
Let's see, May 10th, 2023. Judge Thompson heard a motion to compel in your divorce case as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you were actually held in willful contempt.
Yeah, I'm going to object to the relevance of
His credibility is relevant, Judge, and if he was held in willful contempt for failing to provide answers and documents, I think that's relevant to this court.
How is that a prior false act or crime of conviction or anything else allowed for impeachment under the rules of evidence?
I'm not offering it as a prior bad act or something like that. I'm offering it towards his credibility, Judge, which you get to determine.
There's a lot of factors that are determining credibility. And one of them is not whether or not you've been found in contempt by a court. They don't have much, so they're just flinging whatever mud they can.
If he's made misrepresentations in these pleadings, you're here to determine whether or not he's telling the truth or not. So,
but whether or not another judge, thought that he was in contempt, he could just be lazy and not answering.
Another court has held him in contempt, and that's part of the divorce proceeding. I think it's relevant.
But just contempt generally can be for many different things. Like a failure to produce is not necessarily a false act, right?
Right, and he's welcome to explain that.
He may not have to. Ms. Cross.
I object to the relevance of that. That's clearly not a proper impeachment. We're going pretty far afield into divorce matters that don't have any direct relevance to anything that's pending before the court. I object to the relevance of that and any further.
All right.
So the state is saying that we're going far afield now. I mean, so they're knee deep in these interrogatories. And guess what they're doing? They are distracting. They're not going where they need to right away. The judge is kind of tuning out a little bit.
Not seeing that being a proper grounds for impeachment. It's sustained.
Okay, let's talk about this December 22nd, 2023 verification. I tabbed it for you. Again, they asked you if you had any documentations showing proof of this relationship, proof of any relationship, correct?
I'm going to object to the phrasing of that question. I don't believe that's an accurate read of the interrogatory.
Let's be precise, Ms. Merchant.
Please read it. I want to make sure I'm accurate. Please read it.
Which number?
This one.
In other words, please ask my question for me. I mean, just ask the fucking question.
Actually has a number. I tabbed it for you, so you should be able to open right to the page. It's number 22. The question specifically
Counsel, ask your fucking question.
is if you have any tangible evidence of any nature in your possession or control, or any other person or entity which relates to any manner of your activities to any person with whom you've had a sexual relationship during your marriage. Tangible evidence is notes, cards, letters.
Do you hear what that question said? During the marriage. During the marriage. And if his divorce, if he's separated or if he's no longer with his wife, and it's 2022, and that's when he starts seeing Fani Willis, the answer stands, and it's not untruthful.
Photos, films, recordings, documents, tapes, video recordings, receipts, invoices, and other tangible evidence.
Yes.
Okay. And you answered that you did not have any documents to that effect, correct?
Correct.
And that was on December 22nd, 2023?
Yes, ma'am.
You updated those responses again after the motion to disqualify was filed, though, correct?
When was the motion filed?
January 8th, 2024, when I filed the motion to disqualify you and alleged that you had a romantic relationship with Miss Willis.
Yes, ma'am.
After that, you updated these responses, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And so your new responses, you now changed your answer from that you didn't have any of this to you're asserting the privilege under 24.5.505, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And both of these are under oath.
Yes, ma'am.
You also updated your response to the question about spending time with someone other than your spouse for dinner, drinks, things at restaurants, bars, hotels, or the other person's home, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So in December of 2023, you said no to all that, and then in January, after I filed my motion, you said privilege to all that, Fifth Amendment privilege.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So one of the things you can do in a civil proceeding is you can draw an adverse inference about asserting the Fifth Amendment privilege. Now, this is a criminal proceeding, and so, but he is not the subject of the criminal. The judge can't. The judge cannot draw an adverse inference against a defendant for asserting the Fifth Amendment, but can a judge draw an adverse inference against a witness who invokes the Fifth Amendment? It'll be interesting to see what happens on that note. But now let's talk about the father here. Now the father also testified. We're almost done here, but the father will.
Or with Miss Willis and at her home here in Fulton County.
She was forced to move after she was elected. I don't know if you want me to go through the whole thing, but that, Your Honor, if Your Honor will indulge me.
Now keep in mind, there are two prosecutions going on here. One, the YSL case, which I guarantee you she's gotten threats from the YSL case. And then two, this Trump RICO indictment, which I guarantee you she's getting threats from MAGA people.
She was sworn in on January 1 of 2021. And on or about the 3rd of February, at probably 5:30 a.m. in the morning, there were people outside her house cursing and yelling and calling her the B word and the N word, and it was bizarre. Okay, just bizarre.
Okay, bye. Here's the objection to you.
He's I would say it's a pet down with him, and he's present while all of the things are occurring. But I can.
No, that's. And you saying he was personally present to hear these things?
Yes.
Okay, overruled.
Okay, and fortunately,
basically the objection was hearsay, and if people are calling somebody the N-word, it's not offered for its truth. It's offered to show, bias, but it's not offered for its truth.
the neighbors called the police and disbanded, disbanded the group, and it just I mean, it was just, I hadn't seen anything exactly like it before.
And after that happened, can you tell the court that Ms. Willis would have to move from her home?
Yes, she was forced to leave.
And can you tell the court, after she was forced to leave, shortly after she was sworn in, did you remain at her home in Fulton County?
Yes, I stayed there really until 2022, I guess.
And from what you described, did you fear for her safety?
Absolutely. I mean, not only did I do that, I mean, the South Fulton police, they brought somebody, a man with a dog, because there've been so many death threats. And they said they were going to blow up the house. They were going to kill her. They were going to kill me. They were going to kill my grandchildren. I mean, on and on and on. It just, it became, and I was concerned for her safety.
See, one of the reasons this is important is because there have been allegations that Mr. Wade lived with her, that he paid her expenses, he paid, basically he's being her sugar daddy. And I don't know that that's the case. It certainly doesn't seem like it. And they've got to do a lot more than just establish that there's some romantic relationship between Mr. Wade and Ms. Willis. They don't have, and I don't think they have it. So when you look at this, at the end of the day, the defense is doing what they think they need to. But one of the things I don't do, I don't file every motion possible. I mean, that's what some guys do, and I just, I think you lose credibility because you're not going to win most of them, and better off just to fight the good fight on the things that matter. And one of the things that you've seen in Trump is, what did they do? Appeal this, appeal that, appeal this, appeal that, delay, delay, delay. And to the extent that delay helps them, I suppose it's a successful strategy. They're going to lose this motion too. But I think they've already done a lot of damage to Fani Willis. And her pledge that she would never have a romantic relationship with a subordinate has been destroyed because she did have a romantic relationship. Even though he wasn't a direct employee of the office, he certainly was an employee or a contract employee and under her supervision, right? So to that extent, I think it was really bad form for her to engage in that. Anyway, and that it doesn't matter anyway because this trial is not for like another year or so. I can't remember when they're thinking about trying this. I thought it was like in August, but I think it's probably not till like another year or something like that. And she still has the YSL thing that's going on. I just don't think they have it in this case. So we'll find out later this week, I think, whether Fani Willis is disqualified. I don't think they're quite done taking testimony on this case yet. But and Trump's got some hitters on his side. I know some of the lawyers. I mean, they're good lawyers. But we'll see. So we'll see you next time here at Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, sign up for Patreon, and we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. 23-hour lockdown, please, is that my God?